Welcome back to another episode of the Untitled Football Podcast. Today we're going to go through Week 3, preview Week 3, some picks, predictions, all that type of stuff. I might post a mock draft soon, like way too early mock draft, even though I might not because you don't know much about really anything. There's a ton of prospects that I want to see more of. I do want to do a bit more college content here, but basically more draft content here. And like not just college, because I don't want to preview meaningless games. Like I want to talk more about the prospects than the games themselves. But we'll see about that. Yeah, but let's get right into the week 3 preview. Starting with Miami versus Jacksonville on Thursday night. That doesn't seem like it should be on prime time for everybody to see, but it could be a fun, interesting game with Gardner Minshew versus Ryan Fitzpatrick and their unpredictable nature, both of them. The Jags coming into this game 1-1, Dolphins coming in 0-2. Even though one team has a win, I do think both of these teams are similarly yoked, and the Dolphins have a better roster if fully healthy. Like last week, they had Byron Jones out. And they were having Noah Benogany track Stephon Diggs, which just isn't a good matchup for really anybody to track Stephon Diggs, but for your rookie corner, who I was really low on coming into the draft and didn't think should have been drafted in the first round at all, to track one of the best receivers in the NFL is just a bad idea. So, yeah, that happened. But I do think they're a better overall roster than the Jaguars. The Jaguars' defense hasn't been good at all. And they've been in the close games because their offense is really good. So long story short, I'm going to make this game right here quick because I have other games that I want to go on longer about. I think the Jaguars will probably win. Their offense is better. It's one of the best offenses in the league from an EPA standpoint, at least. In terms of like EPA per pass play, I think they're like top 10. I'm going to fact check myself on that right quick, but the Dolphins' offense hasn't been that good this year. I mean, they were pretty solid last week, but other than that, yeah. But the Jaguars' defense really hasn't made a stop. Like they've caused a turnover, but they haven't had a defensive stop ever this entire season. So, yeah. Whatever. I'm going to go with Jacksonville to beat the Dolphins, and I didn't talk about what the spread was. I'm pretty sure the Jags are 3-point favorites. I don't know. This game is highly unpredictable because of both of these quarterbacks being highly unpredictable. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville nonetheless. The next game, 49ers versus the Giants. Oh. I think the Giants are favored in this game, are they? Oh, no. The 49ers are 4-point favorites without Jimmy Garoppolo. They lost Nick Bosa. They lost Mostert. They lost Kollmann. They're coming in super banged up. Now, if there were a game and if there were a coach that I would trust more than any other coach to pull the most out of a backup, or more than most coaches to pull the most out of a backup, or to make the most of a bad situation, it would be Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, is a top 2, maybe 1 if I wanted to tie Reed and Shanahan on offense, play callers in the NFL. They're both at the top. Now, this could be the game, maybe the one game with Jimmy G down that he's able to scheme a perfect game and beat the Giants, because the Giants have a lot of people that he could just target and take down. Like Blake Martinez is a great coverage linebacker. Their coverage unit as a whole is one of the worst in the NFL still. I mean, Bradbury had a pretty good game. Other than him, it's pretty bad though. So, even still, Bradbury wasn't good in week 1 either. So, this team isn't that. I mean, the Giants secondary isn't that good. If there was one game where Kyle Shanahan could get the most out of a bad situation, it would be against this team that is pretty bad in the Giants. How likely is that? I don't know, because they also have guys out on the defensive side of the ball. Sherman's on IR, Bosa's ACL Solomon Thomas is gone. All their depth is gone, and they were a team that I thought would regress defensively anyway. But now they don't have the pieces. They don't blitz that often. They rely on their front four to get pressure and don't blitz often, which won't work when you don't have the pieces to get pressure up front with just your front four. So, dang, this is a tough game because I don't think the Giants are, well, I don't think they're even that bad, but now Sterling Shepard's on IR for them. And their receiver core, who already didn't have a guy that was going to stand out and be a superstar and win you a rep when you needed him to win you a rep. I mean, Shepard wasn't that guy, but he was another guy that they had that was a weapon. Saquon's gone for them, which is not as big of a loss as people think it is, even though he is a pretty dynamic playmaker, but not nearly as big as a loss as people are making it out to be, even though the team is already bad, though. They lost Shepard. They lost Saquon. I mean, you add all those up, and those are pretty big losses, but like Saquon in itself isn't. Both of these teams are really hobbled coming into the game. Daniel Jones is probably a better quarterback than Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins isn't that good. Week 2 was more indicative of Daniel Jones than week 1. But the 49ers are so injured. But if there was one game that Shanahan could get the most out of what he has right now, it would be this game. This is a toss-up. I don't know who I'm going to go in this game. This is really a toss-up. Let me look at the total, because if you're betting, I would probably bet the total. And it's 41. You could get it as low as 40. Dang, I don't know. Cause this is a difficult game to predict. Like I probably want to go. I went with the Giants last week and got burned for it. I don't know if I want to do that again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna go with the Giants. I'm gonna go with the Giants to beat the 49ers and Nick Mullins, because Nick Mullins isn't that good. And where's Daniel Jones, though? But whatever. Let's go on to the next game, though, with Washington versus Cleveland. Cleveland is coming into this game off of their bounce-back performance against the Bengals, which now they are 7-point favorites right now against Washington. Washington coming off of a blowout loss to Arizona. I don't think Arizona is nearly as good as not nearly as good as their record. It was too early to tell still. It's only week 3. We're only going into week 3, so yeah, but I don't think that Arizona is as good as their record. And this isn't about Arizona yet. Washington sucks. I'm probably going to go with Cleveland to continue their bounce-back performance. So, yeah, but even still, I think that Washington might be able to keep it close because they, like if the Browns don't go with a heavy play action, heavy quick game attack, dropping Baker back multiple times on just like straight drop back passing is not a good idea against a pretty good Washington front four. And I mean, Washington in week 1 at least blitzed a lot. They didn't get to Murray that often in week 2, but Arizona Cardinals offense doesn't really go downfield that often. So, but yeah, because if Washington could get pressure and a lot of things can go wrong. Like I said, because Baker isn't that guy you want to drop back multiple times a game. But I mean, Washington can't cover anybody though. Washington still has probably the worst coverage unit in the NFL. So I'm gonna go with Cleveland to beat Washington, because Washington also has like the worst offense in the NFL. Washington's offense is terrible. So they just don't move the ball. And McLaurin versus Denzel Ward could be a good matchup. I don't know who would win that. Denzel Ward looked really good against AJ Green, made a ton of plays. He was in tight coverage almost everything that he gave up against Green, at least. He gave up one to Boyd, I think, or Higgins on the double move to the corner, I think. I don't remember that play exactly, but he gave up something that wasn't AJ Green. But McLaurin's one of the best route runners in the NFL. I don't know where he would rank. Probably like top 15 at least, maybe higher. But yeah. Other than Terry McLaurin, Washington has no playmakers. Brandon Sheriff is out. This team is bad. Even though they have a win, they're deep in the running for the number 1 overall pick. They are terrible. They need an offensive overhaul. That's what this team needs. A lot of teams need an offensive overhaul, but I think Washington the most. I think Washington has the worst offense in the NFL, right? They just don't move the football. Like, Haskins hasn't turned the ball over often. I don't even think he turned it over once. I don't even think he fumbled once. No, I think he did against the Eagles, actually, now that I think about it. But other than that, no, never mind. But, I'm going to go with Cleveland. But Washington's offense is brutally bad. It's terrible. On to the next game, though. Cincinnati Bengals versus the Eagles. Cincinnati Bengals are 7-point underdogs to the Eagles, and I think the look ahead was 6, and I think it got all the way out to 7 at some places, but the line on DraftKings is 6 there. I mean, you could get it all the way down to 5.5. They are not a good. The Eagles are terrible right now. Carson Wentz is probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. I mean, Joe Burrow is a much better quarterback at this point, and Joe Burrow, despite the perception of him, and despite the fact that there probably is not many guys you'd take over him if there was like an NFL restart as your franchise quarterback. But, I mean, right now it's not all there. Like, he's making these splash plays outside of the pocket, and the pocket presence is, but it's not all there right now. Like, the elements are there, but it's not all there yet. I think I might be a year early on them. I thought this team was going to be better than they were. I mean, better than they are. But then again, they haven't. I mean, they put up a fight in most games, offensively at least. Their defense has been maybe about as bad as I thought they would be, maybe slightly worse. But, yeah, this offensive line sucks. So, yeah, but anyway, back to Wentz right now. Wentz is playing like the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. Wentz looks terrible. Like, bad. So, the worst quarterback is getting 6 points against Cincinnati. That doesn't seem right. Carson Wentz is the worst quarterback in this game, let alone not just the game. Maybe the worst in the league right now. He's playing terribly. And people want to chalk it up to the offensive line, the weapons. Like, I don't think it's the offensive line. Like, you can rule that out. Like, Wentz was only under pressure 19% of his dropbacks this past week, which is 27th in the NFL. Which was 27th in the NFL in week 2. Like, week 1 was rough, but week 2, he was clean as a whistle. And he still sucked because he's just not playing well. Wentz looks terrible right now. Like, bad. So, and you want to blame it on the weapons, but, like, if you separate Wentz from the weapons, and the fact that he is playing like the worst quarterback in the NFL, like, he is the lowest accurate pass percentage, or one of the lowest accurate pass percentages, one of the highest uncatchable pass percentages. He's playing terribly right now, independent of the offensive line and the weapons. So everything that you want to use to absolve a quarterback of their failure is thrown back in his face by being the least accurate quarterback in the NFL right now. So, yeah, that's not... I want to go with the Bengals, but this game is almost set up like a bounce-back game for Carson Wentz. It was for the Browns. I think the Eagles are fundamentally a better team than the Browns. I don't know. But Wentz is playing terribly right now. And it's not like the it's not like Washington and the Rams are defensive juggernauts. Like, they have certain elements of their, like, but he's just missing throws. He looks bad. So, dang. I want to go with the Bengals, but this game is on. Like, the Eagles' secondary is not even playing well. The Eagles' coverage unit isn't playing well. Their whole team sucks right now. The whole team sucks right now. Like, the Eagles' O-line definitely took a step back, though. It's not the top 3 offensive line that it used to be. But the team that they're playing, the Bengals, would kill to have this offensive line. The Bengals would kill to have this offensive line. Because theirs is much worse than the Eagles are, and Joe Burrow looks way better than Carson Wentz does. So, dang, I really want to go with Cincy this game, but this game is almost set up like a trap game for me to pick the Bengals, the Eagles to come out and look really good. But I also thought that about Saints Raiders. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. Well, I talked about it in my review if you really want to hear it right now. But I'll talk about it a bit more today. The Eagles suck right now. But this game is almost set up like a bounce-back game against the Bengals. Oh, something in me really wants to go Philly. Really wants to go Cincy. I think I'm going to end up going with the Eagles. But I don't think they're good right now. They look terrible. Like, that Jalen Hurts pick is looking better and better by the day because he might have to come in and at least attempt to save the franchise by like week 5. Because if Carson Wentz doesn't play well against the Bengals, next week they have Pittsburgh, which is a pretty good defense, which, Jalen Hurts, at this point, you have to see what he has at this point, because he can't be too much worse than Carson Wentz. We'll give Carson, like, if I were the Eagles, I'd give Carson Wentz like 2 more weeks. But then again, he does play like the Steelers and the Ravens in the next 2 weeks, which are elite defenses, which will make him look terrible. But shit, if I'm the Eagles, the clock is ticking on Carson Wentz right now, potentially. You drafted a quarterback in round 2. Your fans are outraged. It looks super smart right now by the way Wentz is playing. Hurts can't be too much worse than Wentz is right now. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Philly for a bounce-back performance. I'm not too confident in that. I don't really like that pick. Getting the Bengals at +6 seems like a pretty good bet to me, at least. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Philly. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I'm going to be thoroughly disappointed when they come out and lose, but the Bengals at +6 is a great bet. The better point guard. Whoa, the better quarterback getting points. That's not... that's really tempting. That line is really tempting. You could get the Bengals on the Eagles are bad. You know what? I'm gonna stay with the Eagles. They could. I'm not confident in that at all, though. I'm gonna go with the Eagles for a bounce-back game against Cincinnati. Now in the next game, Oakland Raiders versus the New England Patriots. The Raiders have been a bit plucky, been a bit tough to beat. Their offense they're like 3rd in offensive in EPA per play on offense, which is kind of surprising. But they beat the Saints too. The Saints defense, which was pretty tough going into the season, they beat the Saints. Now the Patriots, who are going toe-to-toe with probably the hottest team in the NFL right now, and the hottest offense in the NFL, Cam Newton is going toe-to-toe with the Seahawks. I'm going to have to... I might make this quick. I don't know. The Raiders have been better than I expected them to be. Definitely better than I expected them to be. And same with New England, kind of. And I thought they could still win the division. But Cam looks better than I expected him to look, passing the ball at least. And the Raiders still have a pretty bad secondary. Drew Brees just might suck now. I'm going to go with Cam Newton. I'm going to go with Cam Newton and the New England Patriots over the Raiders. I think this one's pretty quick. I really don't want to spend too much time. Like, Cam Newton looked great passing the ball. This seems like a game where they might try to run it a bit more, but I mean, the best way to beat the Raiders is probably just throw the ball. They still have a terrible secondary, so yeah, I'm gonna go with New England to beat the Raiders. What is the line for this game though? I forget to say it sometimes. We gotta look at it. Okay, New England is plus 5.5. I mean minus 5.5. You can get them as high as 6.5. That seems about right. But the Raiders have kept games close. Their offense is playing pretty well. So, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with New England. Definitely New England. No, I mean, there's no question about that. Now the Bears versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are 3.5-point favorites against the Bears. I don't think the Bears are that good. They played up against a bad Giants team, only dropped 17. I mean, Trubisky got a bit unlucky and lucky at the same time. Like his touchdown to Darnell Mooney was pretty lucky. He basically threw it at the corner, and Darnell Mooney swerved around them and got the catch, but he also had some interceptions that weren't really his fault. Atlanta, on the other hand, just imploded and I don't even know. I can't even find a word for that. They just imploded in the most Falcons way possible, I'll put it. You can get them as high as 4. I mean, this Bears defense is pretty underrated. Trubisky is playing badly, but better than he did last year. Which, if your defense can be best in the league, which you can't bank on week to week, is that like you can't bank on your defense being great week to week. So Trubisky's not that good, but the Falcons secondary is bad. AJ Terrell has had a pretty good game last week. But this secondary as a whole just isn't really good in Atlanta. It's a bit, I mean, dang. Yeah, their secondary is not good still. But AJ Terrell was pretty good. 3 catches. 3 targets. He gave up 2. Only 7 yards, though. So he was much better than he was in week 1. He looked terrible in week 1. Definitely had a better game in week 2. He was another guy I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the best cornerbacks from the draft class. Because cornerback play is, like I said when I first said about C.J. Henderson, is that cornerback play is hard to predict from year to year. And that AJ Terrell has the movement skills and some of the production to be a good NFL corner. And so, yeah, he had a better game this week against a pretty good Dallas team, offensively at least. So, I'm going to go with Atlanta. Long story short, I'm going to go with Atlanta as a bounce-back game. But then again, Trubisky could look pretty good against this team. This defense is terrible. But I'm going to go with Atlanta. I'm going to go with Atlanta. Now we have one of the better games of the week. Buffalo Bills versus the Los Angeles Rams. The Bills are 1.5-point favorites, I think. Or 2-point favorite. You can get them at 1.5, so it's basically a pick 'em. I don't know what that was. So, Buffalo has had a pretty easy run from a schedule standpoint, though Josh Allen has made personal improvements. So, yeah, because before, Josh Allen in these games would still be a proponent to miss like half the Josh Allen's like third in adjusted deep ball completion percentage, which like factors in drops and stuff like that. He's third in adjusted deep ball completion percentage right now, or something like that. So he is improved. He has improved from an accuracy standpoint. Now, that is amplified by the fact that people are wide ass open, but it is what it is. Now, they'll still probably be wide open because the Rams don't have a great secondary outside of, well, I mean, I kind of like their pieces, actually. They're not terrible. Ramsey's going to be on Diggs, which is going to be a really fun matchup to watch. But the Rams, on the other side, continue to protect Jared Goff heavily. And he's been booted out on play action on 57% of his on like 50% of his dropbacks, which is an insane rate. So yeah. But from a clean pocket, he's been really good. Under pressure, I mean, he's still been Jared Goff. In a clean pocket, Jared Goff has an 100% adjusted completion percentage from a clean pocket, which is crazy. I mean, under pressure, he's still Jared Goff, but Jared Goff is playing better than he was last year. I mean, it looks like Sean McVay has stepped back into being a full-on mastermind and doing a lot to help Jared Goff again. But yeah, Jared Goff is just making more throws than he did before. So yeah, like Jared Goff he's not just getting his hand held, like he's getting his hand held and also making a couple plays. So that being said, I'm gonna go with, this is a tough game because this is a good game. The Bills' defense hasn't been great this season, but they do have the pieces to put together good defensive performances, but they also have guys that Sean McVay could kind of take advantage of. Dang, I'm going to go with... This is a tough game. This is one of the better games of the week. This is going to be a pretty fun game to watch. Because I think the Rams, coming into the season, I was definitely lower on the Rams. I'm going to go with the Rams here to beat the Bills, and this could be the start of a downward spiral for the Bills because they do have a pretty tough schedule of opposing teams coming up against the Titans, the Chiefs, Seahawks, Steelers. Like, they have a better schedule of opposing teams coming up soon. So this could be the start of a downward decline for the Bills. I don't know. We'll see. Because the Rams don't have a great, I don't know. I don't think the Rams are that good. I don't know. I'm going to go with Los Angeles because I thought, the Rams have been better than I expected them to be. So is that going to continue, or are they going to be more of what they were last year? But then again, that hinged mostly on the fact that their offensive line was terrible, and it has gotten better this year. So, I mean, maybe they are closer to 2018 form than they were to the 2019 team. So I'm going to go with Los Angeles to beat the Bills. And, yeah. Now to the next game. Deshaun Watson and his Texans versus Big Ben and his Steelers. The Houston Texans have been worse than I thought they would be this year, but not record-wise, because I never expected them to beat the Ravens and the Chiefs. That was a tough week 1 and 2. And they have a pretty tough week 3 from an opposing defense standpoint. It's going to get easier from here, so we could see a bounce back from the Texans in the season because it's going to get easier from here. They have the Bengals, Dolphins, Jets, Jaguars coming up on their schedule. The Jaguars are a tough team, though, but same with the Dolphins. They're going to be a pretty tough team. But the schedule is getting much easier from this point forward. You're not playing the two best teams in the NFL and, the best defense in the NFL, so Yeah, the Texans, four. I mean, not Tex. Oh yeah, well yeah, sure. The Texans 4-point underdogs against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Um, that seems about right. Fuller, I don't. I'm not sure if he's out this week, but I know he got injured last week. I think he's out. I'm pretty sure he's out. So you losing Fuller. You're going up against a pretty healthy Steelers team. The Steelers offense still looks kind of sloppy. I mean, Big Ben had a pick right to Justin Simmons, and then had a no-brainer dropped in the end zone. An interception dropped, and then he had the one that Deontay Johnson. Like, Big Ben doesn't look great right now. He was good in week 1. He was better in week 1 than he was in week 2. But as a whole, this offense still looks sort of sloppy. The Texans haven't looked good either. The Texans have looked terrible. They've been more aggressive on 4th down against the Ravens, but they didn't. That didn't. I mean, their attempts to go for it on 4th down didn't work out, which might steer them away from doing it, which probably shouldn't. You just sometimes get on the lower end of variance. Like, it is a high variance play, you get it. Like, you convert it, you're looking really good. But if you don't convert it, it's always gonna look bad and worse than the decision actually is. But yeah, Pittsburgh. I mean, you could get this game as low as 3.5. So Pittsburgh defensively is pressuring the quarterback at a high rate, and the Texans are allowing pressure at a high rate. The Chiefs don't have a great pass rush outside of Chris Jones, and they pressured Watson at a high rate. Same with the Ravens, but they do have a good pass rush with Calais Campbell, and they blitz a lot. The Steelers are blitzing a lot. They have the guys up front like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt to deal pressure on their own. So, yeah, this team is... I'm going to go with the Steelers this game. But the Texans, long term, I think, over the long term of the season, will improve. I just don't think this is the game because the Steelers have another tough defense for them to go up against. But the Texans will definitely look better in the next coming weeks, potentially. And even this game is a game that they could possibly win. It depends on how they play, though. Because, like, they're still not going down the field enough. Like, Deshaun Watson only threw 3 passes that were 20 yards in the air last week. So, you know, that's not what you want from one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL and a group of receivers that can get open down the field. So, you're really not utilizing what you have to fullest extent. I probably said that every time I've talked about the Texans. Like, you need more, like, play-action shots. Because, like, regular long developing plays won't work because the offensive line sucks. But if you add a play fake before that, some longer developing stuff off of play action, they haven't really ran play action all that much. Deshaun Watson and the Texans have ran play action on 28% of Watson's dropbacks, which is... Or not 28%, on 18% of his dropbacks, which is 28th in the NFL. That's not really where you want to be in terms of running play action, because play action is just a good play call. I mean, Deshaun Watson now has a career high in average snap to pass. So they have been getting the ball out of his hands quicker, but that is detriment. But to that strategy's detriment, you're not using Watson's greatest asset, which is his deep ball, and you're not using your receivers to their max ability. But nonetheless, I'm gonna go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Titans versus Vikings. Next game on the schedule. In the look ahead, the Vikings were favorited in this game, but I think the market's quickly switched on that as the Vikings look piss poor right now, and they look awful. Trevor Lawrence might be wearing purple next year, like I said in that Week 2 review video. So, There's places where you can get. Okay, so the Titans are the favorite this game now, but there's places where you could get the game at 1.5 for the Titans. They're way better than the Vikings, especially if Ryan Tannehill is going to continue what he's doing right now. Well, what he did last game, because I mean, Week 1 wasn't as good as he was this game, but yeah, he was great this past game. I mean, if they keep trying to run the ball, it might work because the Vikings have a terrible defensive front. But I also thought the same against the Jaguars, and Derrick Henry still wasn't good. So, I mean, like Derrick Henry isn't playing well, and he's like leading the NFL in carries. So, why are they giving him so much? He's not playing good. He has so many carries, and he's not playing good at all. Anyway, so if Tannehill can play the way he's playing, and the Vikings stay Viking, is AJ Brown back though? Because AJ Brown's injured. That could change my opinion on that. But Tannehill has been Tannehill played well last week, and the Vikings played like shit last week. Kirk Cousins looks terrible. The offense as a whole looks terrible. The defense is also terrible. They're a bad team. Like I said, I expected them to be bad, but not this bad. They look awful. Like at this point, I don't know who they're gonna beat. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Tennessee Titans. Long story short, I said that a lot today, but I'm gonna go with the Titans to beat the Vikings, and they should cover that spread and more, because the Vikings are terrible. So yeah, now let's go to the next game. Starting the 4:00 slate, Carolina Panthers versus Chargers. Now it looks like Tyrod is out with a punctured lung or something like that, so I think Herbert is starting next week. McCaffrey's out for the Panthers. Yeah, a ton of injuries going into this game. Herbert, I mean, he wasn't overall great, but he definitely showed he played better than I expected him to play in his first game. He still had the highest percentage of uncatchable passes, and he threw one of the worst picks you'll ever see. But I mean, he was Justin Herbert. He was missing throws, made some awful decisions, and also made some really good throws. He was Justin Herbert. Now, against the Panthers, they have a terrible secondary. This could be a game where the Chargers look great and Herbert looks like a superstar. Chargers are 6.5-point favorites. I think that I don't know. I actually don't know the look ahead for this game, so I actually wouldn't know what they were pre-McCaffrey injury. So, because I think this might be an overreaction to McCaffrey's injury, which might not be as big as people are making it out to be, in terms of the team and how it's going to affect the team. Because there's a way in which it makes the team better by not trying to pump 100 targets to a running back behind the line of scrimmage. So that alone will probably make the team a bit better. But yeah, McCaffrey's definitely a playmaker that's missed. Definitely a versatile weapon that will be missed. But I think the effect and to the extent of how much he will be missed is a bit overblown. The Chargers, starting Herbert, I don't know. I like what the Chargers have as an overall roster, but I don't. And Herbert did show some things in Week 1. Overall, he wasn't that good. Dang. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with. This is tough because I don't know. I don't know if the Chargers win, but if they do win, I don't think they win outright. I don't think they win by 7 or more, because the Bucks really, not the Bucks. The Panthers haven't really lost by 7 or more all season. The Bucks, sure, but they did also get lucky with 3 drop touchdowns, but sure. But they don't they still played tough the whole game. Something in me wants to go with Carolina, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna go with who is even the better quarterback coming into this game. We don't know much about Herbert. Bridgewater has been uh, okay. He's been so-so. He's a different Teddy Bridgewater than he was in New Orleans, as he has like one of the higher A dots in the NFL and not the lowest, which is crazy to imagine. I'm gonna go with Carolina winning this game over the Chargers. I don't like that at all. This could really go either way, but at the price of +6.5 or +6, you could maybe get him as 7, maybe. Like at that price, I think it's a good pick to go for the Panthers over the Chargers. Next game, New York Jets versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are coming into this game as 10.5-point favorites, which is by far the largest spread of any game today or on Sunday. So that's interesting. I mean, it's well deserved. The Jets are awful. They suck right now. They're playing to lose. They're giving Frank Gore 21 carries while trailing in the game by like 30. They are playing tanking football to its finest extent. And just the roster talent around Darnold, the coach, like Darnold has no shot at all. Like looking at the roster, you had an interesting group of playmakers in the preseason. A pretty good pretty good slot receiver in Jamison Crowder. Denzel Mims, who's a promising rookie who I liked a lot. Perryman, who showed a lot and played really good down the backstretch of the 2019 season. Like, you had some interesting guys, but then Mims goes down in training camp. Crowder goes down in week 1. Perryman goes down in week 2. And you throw in like Braxton Berrios as your number one receiver. Like Chris Hogan, like Josh Malone. Like Sam Darnold is throwing to a awful group of receivers, and they're giving up 3rd and 30s on run plays. The Jets are terrible. This 10-point spread is very, very, very well deserved. Like, it's almost like they're playing the tank. They need a change there. I don't really know if they even need a change at quarterback, because I don't know how many. I'm not quite sure how many QBs succeed with what Sam Darnold has right now. The list is very small, if there even is a list at all. Because, like, Mahomes, maybe, but Wilson, maybe. Rodgers at his peak, maybe. But that's about it. And all those guys, like, this supporting cast is awful. I mean, the O-line is not good. I mean, Mekhi Becton's been a bit better than I expected him to be out of the gate, at least. I mean, he has had a somewhat easy schedule of opposing edge rushers after Nick Bosa got hurt, and then you went up against Mario Addison. But he has looked good. So, I mean, this team is bad, because I don't even know if Trevor Lawrence will be able to overcome this weapon. Like, these weapons are bad. I mean, the secondary sucks. The defense sucks. But let's go to the Colts. I think they might go with a very run-heavy approach this game. Just run the Jets out of the building, because I mean, it is what it is. They suck, to put it frankly. And the Colts receiver core isn't that great right now. Campbell showed some good stuff in week 1, got injured. I mean, Pittman, who I still like. T.Y. I mean, the passing offense hasn't been amazing. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Colts, nonetheless, because the Jets are awful. The Jets are the worst team in football right now. Yeah, them or the Vikings. Yeah. And Sam Darnold isn't playing poorly, but he also isn't playing that good either. Because, I mean, like I said, how many quarterbacks succeed in this supporting cast, it's awful. Sam Darnold is playing with trash right now. But I don't know. The Colts could go with a more run-heavy approach this game, try to run him out of the building. They went with a more run-heavy approach last week against the Vikings. I mean, Jonathan Taylor only had like a 3.5 per carry, but yeah, they might try to run it a lot with Jonathan Taylor. He only had he has a 3.5 carry per carry on the whole season. So, I mean, their run game isn't that efficient, but I mean, they'll probably go to it though. So, yeah, Jonathan Taylor might be a good guy to start in fantasy. He's getting most of the snaps. Nyheim Hines only played 4 this past week after being their lead guy, basically, and being their lead guy in fantasy points in week number 1. He ended up playing 4 snaps the next week. So, from a fantasy standpoint, Jonathan Taylor might be a guy you want to start. But I'll talk about that a bit more in the fantasy preview of the week because I'm adding the fantasy segment to the podcast. So, yeah. Colts over the Jets. Do they cover 10.5? Probably. The Jets are bad. So, I don't see why they don't cover it. Now on to the next game, which is another one of the games of the week. Dallas Cowboys versus Seattle Seahawks. Cowboys coming off of a win against the Atlanta Falcons after they choked. Nice comeback. Dak looked good in the game. Coming off of momentum. Getting some big momentum, I guess. I don't know. Not like that's going to sway my prediction either way, but yeah, the Seahawks, they look good. Russell Wilson's playing great. DK Metcalf looked amazing versus Stephon Gilmore. He's just too fast and too big. Really for too many people to cover, and people were saying, oh, he's overrated. He can only run deep routes. Like, those are the most valuable routes on the field. Like, he might not ever be Michael Thomas, catch 180 footballs or whatever the hell he did. But DK Metcalf could be one of the best deep threats in the NFL. He's at like 23 yards per reception right now. DK is great. Russell Wilson is great. The Cowboys secondary is still bad. It's been about as bad as I thought it was going to be coming into the season. And going up against Russell Wilson won't help that. Now, they also went up against the Falcons, who have great weapons, and the Rams, who have McVay and also some pretty good receivers. So maybe their secondary is actually better than I think it is, but they've played up against great opposing competition, which is probably the case, but I mean, that won't change here against Seattle. So yeah, so their secondary probably still looks bad. The Seahawks have no pass rush. That's probably going to be a secondary thing in this game, though, because it's probably going to be a lot of points. I mean, I don't know. Seahawks defense has the guys back like in the coverage unit to be a successful defense, but their pass rush is probably the worst in the NFL, or one of the worst in the NFL. So, man, I mean, Dallas. Wait, I didn't talk about the spread. I think Seattle is favored, but I can't confirm that right now. Seattle 4.5-point favorites. You can get them as high as 5. So it looks like letting Russ cook is going to be a constant strategy, which makes the Seahawks so dangerous and so much better than they were last year. So, well, I'm going to go with Seattle. I think I'm going to go with Seattle, but I could see it going either way. Dallas definitely has the weapons to beat Seattle. It's going to come down to, I don't know if it's going to come down to who's the better quarterback, but because if it does, then that's Russell Wilson easily, but it depends. I mean, Dallas is a good offense. They got, tanked by fumbles last week, but they were able to overcome that and beat the Falcons. Granted, the Falcons have a bad defense, and the Seahawks don't have a great coverage unit, but it's better than Seattle I mean, better than Atlanta. And I don't think I'm gonna go with Seattle to beat Dallas. I'm gonna go with Seattle to beat Dallas. I think that Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in the league right now. I mean, Dallas looked good last game after they stopped fumbling, but I'm still gonna go with Seattle because they've looked great all season. So, yeah. On to the next game: Detroit Lions versus the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals are favorited in this game against the Lions. The Lions favorite against the Lions 5.5. You can get them as high as 6. I think that's kind of a. I don't know. I don't like that because I mean a bunch of guys are injured were injured for the Lions, and I mean I think Arizona's a tad. I mean I don't know if they're fraudulent, but like they're not winning these games in a way that makes me think, oh yeah, they're so dangerous. Like they're like death by 1,000 paper cuts offense, and maybe Kyler Murray might run every once in a while. They're like the Saints offense, but Kyler Murray is able to create some sort of explosive plays with his legs. But their passing offense isn't that great. Uh, like there is no element of explosive plays passing the ball except for against Washington, but Washington sucks. Washington has a terrible coverage unit, but so it looked a bit better there, but it's really just short stuff until you get to the end zone, which might not happen. But I mean, the Lions haven't been great. Matt Stafford hasn't been good, and they're starting Okuda, and they had Okuda tracking Devontae Adams into the slot and stuff. That was an ugly game by Jeff Okuda. It was like what are they? What's the saying? Death by not death, baptism with fire or whatever the saying is. It happened to Jeff Okuda. Jeff Okuda was tracking Devontae Adams. Now DeAndre Hopkins is not an easier matchup if they're gonna have him tracking. He's having a rough go of it in terms of opposing receivers if they want him to be tracking. But other than Hopkins, their weapons aren't great. Their offense doesn't create big plays nearly ever, unless it's the Kyler Murray run. I mean, their defense isn't great, but like they still have like the coverage pieces to have somewhat good performances. I mean, like a team of Galladay, Jones, Hawkinson at tight end, Danny Amendola in the slot. Like, that team can pressure the Cardinals defense and make them look bad, kinda. But I don't know, because if they're fully healthy, then I think 5.5 or 6 is way too high for this game. If the Lions are coming in fully healthy, that's the crux to this game. Is that even the right word? Like that's kind of the thing to this game. Like if the Lions are coming into this one fully healthy, then I don't like it. Like so, yeah. If they're coming in fully healthy, then I think 5.5. I think 5.5 is way too high for the Cardinals to be favored. I mean, people might be slightly overreacting. The 49ers had Sherman on IR. Jimmy Garoppolo played poorly, and then they played Washington. So like their opposing teams look great on paper when you look at the 49ers and what Washington did in week 1. But the 49ers didn't play good. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't hitting throws to save his life. And Washington has the worst offense maybe the NFL has ever seen. So, and an awful secondary. So they look better than they actually are against teams that weren't that good. So, yeah, because when you look at the 49ers team without Sherman at cornerback, then those other guys aren't really good at all. Now, Sherman played for most of that game, though. He's on IR now. Didn't really allow anything. But, he doesn't track, so you could just line up DeAndre Hopkins anywhere else, and he'd eat, and that's what he did. But, he has a ton of catches, but, none of them are anywhere near down. He gets a ton of screens now compared to what he used to get. And, because, right now he's at 10 yards per reception. He had 14 catches last week at 10 yards per reception, which isn't great. So, yeah, he has 0 catches, 20 yards down the field, but, he was never a guy that was really a true deep threat. He leans more in the intermediate. Well, he's a pretty good deep threat, but, yeah, this is definitely, a different style of offense. A ton of screens, ton of short passes. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, if the Lions are fully healthy, 5.5 is too high. I think they have a relatively high shot of winning this game if they're healthy. That being said, I'm going to go with Arizona. And, yeah. Let's get on to the last 4 o'clock game, though. Bucs versus Broncos. The Broncos starting Blake Bortles now after picking him up on the waiver wire for Jeff Driscoll after the injury of Drew Lock. This isn't, I don't know, how much better is Blake Bortles than Jeff Driscoll? I don't know. Jeff Driscoll wasn't awful last week. He wasn't close to good. He wasn't, terrible. He made throws that Drew Lock has kind of proven he can't make already in his career. Jeff Driscoll completed a couple deep balls, threw some really bad picks, missed some throws. He's Jeff Driscoll, so don't know what we expected. But Jeff Driscoll hit 2 deep balls. Well, he's 2 for 6. That's not that good, but Drew Lock in his career is 4 for 20, so compared to Drew Lock, he really isn't that bad throwing the deep ball. Blake Bortles, he sucks too. So the Bucs should win. Brady, like I said in the review, is playing better than his stats. And, yeah, he had multiple touchdowns drop, multiple passes drop. His stats aren't good, but the tape is way better. He still has it. Compared to some other quarterbacks that are over the age of 40 that might not still have it. I'll get into that a little bit later, though. The Bucs should be 11-point favorites against a Blake Bortles-led team. But indeed, they are 6-point favorites against a Blake Bortles-led team. They should probably win by more than that against a Blake Bortles-led team. They're not. Yeah, I have the Buccaneers. I think they cover that pretty easily because, shit, the Broncos aren't that good. They're not even that good with Drew Lock. They're not even 6 points within the Bucs with Drew Lock. I'm not 1,000% sure that. I don't know. The Broncos are probably 3 points better than the Panthers, so never mind. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucs this game. On to Sunday Night Football. Another game that kind of looked good on paper. Well, after week 1 and week 2, it doesn't look good on paper anymore. Aaron Rodgers playing great right now, and Drew Brees playing poorly right now. Low sample. I should have prefaced that at the beginning. But Drew Brees just doesn't look good. I don't know if he has the arm anymore to be an NFL quarterback. And, arm strength isn't the most important thing for a quarterback. Or is it close? Because Drew Brees, one of all, never had elite arm talent. So, and he's made a long career. And even still, when he was waning in terms of arm talent, last year and 2018. He was still a top 3-5 quarterback in the NFL. So it's not the most important thing, but I think he might have hit the threshold to where he doesn't have it at all. He threw a bad pick against the Raiders, too. Tossed it right to the linebacker. It was like off platform, and I mean, it wasn't a great decision whether his feet were set or not, but off platform, we know damn well he doesn't have the arm to make that shit. But we know who does. Aaron Rodgers, on the other side of the field, can make every throw in the world, and in game 1 he was, at least. Week 2, I mean, kinda. Not to the same extent, though. Week 1 was great, though. Saints have a much better defense than they've played so far. Like, they played the Lions and the Vikings. The Vikings secondary is dog shit. But, yeah, the Saints, I'm really concerned about them. I was concerned about Drew Brees and the Saints coming out of week 1. I am more concerned now because the Raiders game was almost set up like to have a bounce-back game and look good, and he didn't. So, it might be time to sound the alarms. Like, I know it's too early, but against the Raiders, I mean, I know it might be a little bit too early, but against the Raiders in a game where you should be looking better than you did against the Bucs, who have a pretty tough defense. But in a game against the Raiders, you shouldn't still look as bad as you did. Like, the Raiders don't have a good secondary. But they look good against Drew Brees because Drew Brees is playing terribly right now. His accuracy is all over the place. It seems like he might not... Well, his accuracy is all over the place when it comes to throwing anything further than 5 yards. Like, his ball placement on, like, those intermediate throws isn't nearly the same thing it used to be. So, that being said, I'm going to go with Green Bay to beat the Packers. And I think New Orleans is favored in this game, too. They're 3.5-point favorites. You could get them as low as 3. This isn't what... I don't think that's a... Well, then again, Devontae Adams is injured. He has a hamstring injury, which could aid the Saints, which will aid the Saints if he's out. I didn't even think of that until now. But, like, Aaron Rodgers is such a significantly better quarterback than Drew Brees right now that I have the Packers. Drew Brees isn't playing that well. I'm going to take the Packers over the Saints because the Saints just don't look good offensively right now. And let's get on to the game of the week. Full-on game of the week. 2 of the best teams in the NFL. Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs on ESPN on Monday Night Football. These two teams have matched up multiple times with Lamar and Mahomes at quarterback. Now, granted, the first time, Lamar was a different quarterback. Like, completely different. Like, he was, like, the least accurate quarterback in the NFL. Now he's not elite accuracy-wise, and he might never be. But he's become passable. He's like average to below average, to slightly below average to above average in some categories of accuracy. Depths to the field in terms of accuracy. He boosted his on-target pass percentage by a lot, but his accuracy, his ball location accuracy is still not great. But anyway, Lamar Jackson's great, though. He can run, he can throw. And there's not many ways in sight to stop Lamar Jackson. Like, people want to say the Titans had the blueprint. The Titans, bro, they got really lucky that game, too. We're not lucky, but the Ravens hit the lower side of variance in terms of going forward on 4th down. They didn't convert any of them, or, like, one of them. They're, like, 1 for 9 on 4th down. Like, if they convert just 2 or 3 more of those, the Titans lose the game. So I don't think they found the blueprint to stopping Baltimore at all, really. So I don't think there really is a blueprint in sight. The Chiefs, there really is no blueprint to stop them either, because you're never going to contain them for a full game. Like, you might, we have Mahomes in the palm of our hand now. No, you don't. Chargers probably thought the same thing. Now, the best idea for him, because there's probably nothing you can do in terms of coverage to stop Patrick Mahomes. And there's almost nothing you can do in terms of pass rush to stop Mahomes, but I think that affects quarterbacks like him and Aaron Rodgers more than it affects other quarterbacks. Like, quarterbacks that will make literally any throw into any window. I mean, your coverage isn't going to do shit about that, especially if you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, who's also insane, and Travis Kelce. But Tyreek Hill had a ton of drops last week, so Chargers got off of it lucky. So did the Chiefs. Whatever though. Ravens look dominant right now. These are probably the two best teams in the NFL. If not the NFL, then the AFC. No, they're definitely the two best teams in the NFL right now, at least. Mahomes isn't playing that well this season. He had a kind of blag game against. He had sort of a blag game against the Texans, and against the Chargers, he was okay. Tyreek Hill dropped a ton of passes. Then he dropped one of the best. Then he dropped in one of the best passes you'll ever see. Mahomes right now has the third lowest ADOT in the NFL, which is shocking and really weird to see. Baltimore are 3.5-point favorites. Oh man, this is. I don't know if the 3.5 points are better than the Chiefs though. The Chiefs are really good, and last time these two teams played, the Chiefs dealt them really easily, and they didn't even have Tyreek Hill. So, the Ravens are also a better team offensively than they were then, so I doubt they just boat race them like that from the start. I don't know if there is a blueprint to beating the Ravens or the Chiefs. This is really a toss-up game here. Lamar Jackson coming into this game right now from the 2-week sample size we have is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes right now. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, but coming into this game from what we have this season, Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback. Now, you do better on a guy like Mahomes to bounce back, and you don't just say, oh yeah, he's going to play this whole season, because he hasn't been that good this year. But trying to create a bounce-back performance against the Baltimore Ravens is not a thing. The Ravens' defense has looked amazing so far. But against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and all those weapons, they'll definitely look worse. But I don't know if they'll suck. But I don't think they'll look the same that they do against the Browns and the Texans. So, yeah, I think the Ravens could do a pretty good job running on the on the Chiefs, because the Chargers did, and they have a worse offensive line, a worse running game, a worse overall running game. And, yeah, they could run all over the Chiefs, but then the Chiefs, this game is going to be interesting, because these two teams are polar opposite teams, kind of. Well, not kind of. These two teams are polar opposite teams in their ideal game plan, at least. Like, the ideal game plan for the Chiefs is pass the ball, and pass the ball. The Ravens' ideal game plan is run the ball, and run the ball. These two teams are totally different. The Chiefs are probably better when they're down, because it puts them in that optimal game plan of pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball. And the Ravens are much better when they're up, when they can just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. These two teams are polar opposites. Like, the Chiefs are better when they're down, like, play calling wise. They call more efficient plays when they're down. And the Ravens are basically the opposite. Well, not like they don't call efficient plays when they're down, but they don't go down often. So if there was... damn, this game is interesting. This game is really tough to predict. I'm gonna go with Kansas City over Baltimore, because I think that offense, I don't know. I think that offense is too explosive. They had their worst game and still won. Granted, they got off a bit lucky, but at the same time, Tyreek Hill dropped a ton of passes. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes over Lamar Jackson and his Ravens. And now we're going to get on to the last segment of the podcast, fantasy preview, kind of a start-sit thing. So, yeah. We have Steelers versus Texans. That's the game I want to target. The Texans have a really bad coverage unit. So there could be a lot of passing yards to be had. So I would start probably Deontay Johnson or Juju, whichever one you have. I think Deontay Johnson's a better football player than Juju. Maybe like he's a better route runner. I'd say that. And the Texans have a bad secondary. It's a good matchup for as an opposing defense. Now, granted, Big Ben didn't play that well last week, and he could suck, but there was still a lot of fantasy points to have, even though Big Ben wasn't that good. So, yeah. Now let's look at A.J. Brown if he's healthy versus the Vikings. Ryan Tannehill versus the Vikings. That might be something you want to do. You might want to stack them. That might be a good stack there. Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, if A.J. Brown plays. I don't know the exact injury report, so I actually don't know if he's playing or not. But if he is playing, that seems like a pretty good start. And a pretty good stack with Ryan Tannehill because they might light up the Vikings if they pass the ball enough, because they don't pass the ball ever. Like Ryan Tannehill's fantasy points, now that I think about it, are actually very touchdown dependent because he doesn't throw the ball often, so there's not much yards potential. So he has to be super efficient. McLaurin is always a good start. He's the only player that's really worth giving volume to, and at the end of the game against Arizona, it seems like they were pumping him targets and giving the ball to him. He was moving the chains. He did everything. He was great. So, yeah, I might be a guy you want to start, but Denzel Ward, if he shadows, like he kind of did with AJ Green, then it is a tough matchup for him. Even though Terry McLaurin at this point in their careers is probably better than AJ Green. Okay. Cam Newton, always the guy you want to start. Preston Williams, Devontae Parker against the Jaguars. The Jaguars haven't really made a stop against anybody. They've got interceptions, but they haven't made a stop. They haven't made a stop all year. So you might want to start Devontae Parker / Preston Williams. I thought Preston Williams had the chance to outscore Devontae Parker. I mean, week 1 he had more targets, but he's not. Most of his targets are down the field, so he does have higher air yards than Devontae Parker. And if he catches 1 or 2 of those, then that's like 80, maybe not 80, but like 60 plus yards on the season. On that game, only 2 catches. But in the PPR league, when Devontae Parker is getting more catches, so he still might not outscore him. Jerick McKinnon might be a start here. Deion Lewis definitely isn't someone you want to target anymore because they got Devonta Freeman. Jerick McKinnon and like Jeff Wilson are the 2 running backs there. So one of them is going to get the early down role, one of them might get the receiving role, or one of them is going to play every down. I'm not 100% sure. But Mike Davis might be a good one because he's the guy that could play 3 downs, catch the ball, run the ball pretty well. The Panthers running back who's going to come in and replace McCaffrey. He won't be a one-on-one replacement, but because I doubt he receives the same volume of McCaffrey, which from a regular football standpoint, maybe it's maybe better, but whatever. Fantasy standpoint, that's a major loss for you. Shit. That might be it. I don't know. Let me talk about a defense maybe, even though it doesn't really matter in fantasy at all. But Watson, the guy who holds on to the ball a lot, but they're running much more quick passes. He actually doesn't hold on to the ball that much anymore. But that defense versus that O-line and with Watson at quarterback might be a good defense to start. Maybe Higbee, because the Bills have some linebackers you could target in coverage. Maybe Higbee's the guy you start again. I don't know. So, yeah, those are some fantasy previews. A little bit of start sit. Oh, I didn't talk about start sit. Shit. Let me look at the week. Oh boy, you probably want to sit. I don't know. Shit. I probably want to sit Drew Brees, start Tannehill. That might be a good start sit. because Drew Brees isn't really gaining. How many fantasy points did he have last week? He's not really gaining yards like that. He threw for 100 against the Bucks. They have a good defense. He threw for 300 against the Raiders, but yeah. I think somebody you definitely want to start is Russell Wilson. I don't know why you would never start Russell Wilson. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. That's it for the video. Oh, you might want to sit Stephon Diggs, who's probably going to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. Might want to sit Stephon Diggs and start one of the Steelers guys, Deontay or Juju, because they have a much easier matchup. But one, like, shit. Okay. Might want to sit Stephon Diggs. Might. Because of his matchup. He's going up against one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL in man coverage, and Jalen Ramsey, who's probably going to shadow him. So, yeah. You might want to start Odell, too. Start Odell against Washington. That pick does have some pretty big bust potential depending on how Cleveland plays that game and like what strategy they use in that game. Allen Robinson might be a good start against the Falcons defense. So, yeah. That's the fantasy. This is the end of the fantasy preview. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. And, yeah, see you on the next podcast, which is coming out on Tuesday as a week review. I might add a college podcast. I might do a mock draft soon. All this is a might. We'll see, though. I'm out. Peace.